for any questions you may have. Oh, that's certainly fine. Gentleman from Colorado is recognized for any questions he may have.
I thank the chairman and I thank the gentlewoman from Pennsylvania. And thank you to Chairman Womack and my friend from Maryland, former Majority Leader, and the ranking member. Appreciate both of you being here. I have a couple of questions for you, Chairman Womack, and I want to first echo, I think, the sentiments that were expressed by my colleague from New Mexico, because I certainly know you by reputation to be intellectually candid and honest and have great respect for you and your service in the House. But I do have some serious concerns about this particular bill that's been brought before the committee and that the House will soon consider. I assume you'd agree with me, I suspect the ranking member would too, that we're broadly speaking, given what's happening in the world, concerned about terrorism. Is that something that you think the American people should be concerned about?
We are, yes. I share that concern.
Are you familiar with the Office of Terrorism and Financial Intelligence?
I am.
Does this bill cut funding for the Office of Terrorism and Financial Intelligence, or does it increase funding?
I mean, it's among the, as I mentioned a minute ago, the categories that got plussed up were few, okay? This was one of the categories that was cut.
So the Office of Terrorism and Financial Intelligence is cut in this bill. It's cut by about $9.2 million. That sound about right?
I'll take your word for it, because I don't have, I'm not
of course,
looking at the.
no problem, and I'm not quoting you on these numbers.
I got a lot of line
I can
items.
attest to you. It's
Sure.
what is reflected in what the committee has submitted to us. $37.2 million below the president's request, a $9.2 million cut for the Office of Terrorism and Financial Intelligence, which, if you know, of course, is designed to essentially develop and implement U.S. government strategies to combat terrorism.
But it's not the only. I mean,
Sure, it's not the only, but I don't know that it's a good
fair.
sign
Yeah.
that the Office of Terrorism would be cut by the Republican budget, given what's happening in the state of the world. In any event, I'll move on. You're familiar, I know, with FinCEN.
I am.
This is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, is that right?
Correct.
Is it cut or increased in this budget?
It's cut in this budget.
$24.2 million below the fiscal year 23 level, right? About right.
Again, I'm not looking at my line items. I don't have them all committed to
No
memory.
worries. Well, I can attest to you. That's the scale of the cut, which is $62.9 million below the president's request. And again, this is an agency designed to pursue financial crimes. It's a law enforcement agency, right?
That's fair.
Okay. The Office of National Drug Control Policy, is it cut in this budget or is it increased?
It is cut.
It's cut $9.6 million. Again,
It is.
Very concerned, as I know my colleagues are, about pervasiveness of fentanyl, across the country and the need to address that crisis. This budget cuts the National Drug Control Policy Office by $9.6 million. The SEC, everyone's familiar with the SEC. Does this budget cut or increase funding?
It cuts the SEC, yes.
By about $2 billion.
Cuts the SEC, yeah.
So
We stipulate to all of those assertions.
I appreciate that stipulation. And Mr. Womack, again, it's not meant to be pejorative. It's simply to say that what you call right-sizing the government seems to be cutting the Office of Terrorism, cutting the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, cutting the Office of National Drug Policy, cutting the Securities Exchange Commission. That does not sound like right-sizing the government to me. That sounds like defunding law enforcement. And that's certainly not something that I can support and that I suspect the vast majority, if not every one of my colleagues on our side of the aisle can support. And so I would hope that, once this process is done, because again, I know you to be a reasonable member, that we can get back to having a serious conversation about a budget that, yes, makes the necessary adjustments where appropriate in light of the fiscal condition of the country, but does not put at risk core law enforcement functions, which unfortunately this budget does. And that's all I have. I'm happy to give the ranking member an opportunity to the extent he'd like to opine on that, but absent that, I'll yield back.
The gentleman's right.
Simple enough for me. Thank you, and I thank the chairman, and I yield back the balance of my time.